welcome everybody. I have two notes for the captains. First of all, I'm sorry I prematurely retired you. I didn't mean to. And secondly, the CalPilots chapter, that was the website you shared from San Carlos. It's San Carlos Airport Pilots, San Carlos Airport Association.org. We took the pilots out a few years ago from our name so that we could include people in our community so that we would work together for noise abatement procedures, etc. And also, did you know that Santa Paula Airport was closed because the runway ate the airport about, I don't know, 15 years ago? And I was on a team with Caltrans and the FAA to help get the runway glued back together again. It's a really cute airport. Also, so today we're going to have our annual meeting, and I'm going to introduce the board members to you. And we also have a ballot. I think, Jolie, you're going to display that later, not yet, but I wanted to introduce everybody. In Region 1, we have a VP, and I don't know if can everybody say hello and get your camera on, all the board members? So Region 1 is Patrick Wallner. Are you there, Patrick? Yes. Excuse me.
I'm here, but it won't let my video come up.
Okay, well, simple hi will do. And then Region 2 is Gil Wright, a VP Region 2. Hi, Gil.
Good morning, everyone.
Region 3, Doug Rice.
Good morning.
He really is a retired airline pilot. And Region 4, Jolie Lucas, from whom you've heard before. Region 5, Ed Story. There you are. Hi, Ed. What's that behind you?
Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, you're muted. Ed, turn on your mic.
It's a prospective vertiport for eVTOLs.
Good, good. You and Gil can take off from there. And then Region 6 Vice President is Gary Shank. He's coming on a little bit later, and he also is a retired airline pilot. Really, he is. And and then we have directors at large. So we in Region 1, that's Paul Marshall. Hi, Paul. In Region 2, we have a nominee for a new position. It's Jim Pinkowski, and in a minute, I'm going to ask Gil to tell us about him. Region 3, Andy Wilson. Hi, Andy. Andy's been doing yeoman's work on our website and also membership. Region 4, Karen Kahn has been the major domo behind getting all these fabulous prizes, and she deserves a tremendous amount of praise for that. Thank you, Karen.
You're very welcome, but I have to tell you that Jolie Lucas, our VP of Region 4, has also worked extremely hard, and I'm going to take my hat off to her. She is the ultimate Major Domo S.
Savannah White of CalPilots.
There we go. Excellent.
Thank you both. You've done a fabulous job to make this meeting so fun. Peter Albies, are you here, Peter?
Yes.
Oh, hi. I see your picture. Peter is the director at large in Region 5, and I'll explain the regions in a minute. And director at large Region 6 is Bill Sanders, who I'm sure has been having a problem getting into the website, right? So that's our board with Walt Wells as the treasurer, and I'm Carol Ford, the president. And we would like to give a big thank you to our beloved secretary, Charlene Fulton, who is not on the board anymore. She's still with us and she's alive, but she's just not on the board. And we miss her, and we want to give her a big thank you. Also today, we're going to have a treasurer's report, which is going to be very brief because I believe we're solvent, right, Walt?
Yes, and I can't bring my picture up, which is fine. You can just look at that mugshot. Yes, we are solvent. So when you're ready, I will talk a couple of numbers.
Hey, Carol, we have a real quick question just to jump in on. Karen Hosteen asks, will there be more seminars after your meeting? And the answer is yes. And what time is the next seminar? I forget.
I think, well, first of all, we're going to have, during our meeting, we're going to talk about lead issues at RHV. So you could consider that. And we're going to have a little video about CalPilots, CalDART. Those are both at the after the this part of our meeting. So you might want to stay tuned to those. Melissa McCaffrey from AOPA is joining me to discuss lead. And I'm sure we'll have input from Paul and Doug on that portion. So you want to hear that because lead is going to be the key issue coming to an airport near you in the next year or so. And then we'll have a lunch break, lunch on your own. I'm sorry, the cafeteria here is closed, but you can find one in your own kitchen. And then
we have door prizes. We have door prizes at the end before lunch.
Thank you, Julie.
You have to be here to win them.
Yes, so that's why you want to stay tuned to this meeting. I assure you, the treasurer's report and the election are not going to take long, and then we'll get into the announcements and the video, and then the talk about lead. And then we have this lunch break eventually. And then what time do the Kings start? Is it 1:15 or between 1:15 and 1:30?
We want folks to come back from lunch at 1:15, and we will be introducing John and Martha and giving a few notes ahead of time. And then they begin at 1:30.
And then we have another presentation at 2:45 from, oh, hi, Walt, from our Captain Gary Schenk. He is also on the board. He's the VP for Region 6. He already told us he couldn't be here right now, but he'll be here later. And his presentation you do not want to miss is at 2:45. So that's the answer to that question. And also I had notes from two people in the chat and the Q&A. David Fretwell, I think he's all okay with his membership. And then Jenna Lonis, Lohneis. Were those two straightened out, and are they okay?
They're on the new member list, and
okay.
We've received a total of 15 to date since today, new members.
Thank you, everybody. And let's see. Okay, so the treasurer's report, you're just going to give a couple of numbers. We're not going to have a long treasurer's report. The good news is we have money. Yes, Walt.
Yes, I guess that's the answer. Yeah, we our bank balance now is over 33,000.
Perfect.
Compared to last year at the end of the year, it was 25,000 and 14,000 the year before. So COVID.
We're doing great.
Good. Yeah, and our income has been going up because some of our expenses, mainly our paper newsletter, no longer being done. So instead of being a negative in 2019 of a couple thousand, we went a couple thousand positive in 20. But this year so far, and this is only the 9.5 months, is almost $9,900 of income, net income. So it's a good trend.
That's great. Thank you so much, Walt. And then also under our agenda, we're going to talk about Reed Hillview, and I think that we will save that for the lead discussion, which the update of that is now there are many conversations with the FAA, but when we talk about lead, we'll talk about that. The good news or the hopeful news about Reed Hillview. And so we're going to, is the election mechanics, is that all worked out? Andy, you're muted. Andy?
He's working on getting unmuted.
Thank you.
Technology, patience.
Yes, thank you.
All right,
Andy.
so how do you want to do this? Do you want to do it through the Q&A or the chat? I think the chat is only for us. How do you want to do it? We had talked about doing it through the chat.
The chat is for everybody.
Okay. So what we're going to do, and the way this is going to work now, is that the only item that we have for vote is the board of directors.
Slate. Right.
Slate. So an email went out today. You can see the slate. If you want to, if you have any questions, or Carol, Mike, do you want to post it, or Jolie?
Mike has the ability to put it on right now, I believe.
Well,
Okay.
wait, just wait 1 minute. Before we do that, we're going to have Gil introduce Jim Pinkowski and tell us a little bit about him.
Okay.
So wait, before that happens, I'm finishing you, Andy, and then Gil.
Okay, so everyone, this is kind of a open loop kind of thing. So what we're going to do is we will, in the chat room, open for vote. So enter your name and say yes or no. And then it's going to take a few minutes. So I don't know if you want to wait for me.
No, we're not waiting.
Okay, so it's going to be a manual process this year. Next year, it'll be automatic. You can vote online. You won't have to go through the chat room, et cetera. So we're getting there. I think next year we'll have it all together. So if you bear with me, you get one vote. Those people who are members, CalPilot members, CalPilot, CalDART members, lifetime members, and members, one more category, I'll get it. So what we'll do is we'll match you just as we did with the prizes, the same list. And as new members have signed in, we've expanded that list, and let's just see how it works out. We did it last year this way, by the way, and it worked out pretty good. So.
Super, thank you. Okay, so would you please introduce Jim Pinkowski? I know you sent an email this morning, but could you just verbally tell us about Jim?
Yeah, Jim Pinkowski is someone who I first met in attending the Golden West Air Show. At that time, this is probably 15 years ago. He was the person who was actually helping to organize the General Aviation Fly-In Ramp. And he and I, we continued doing things with the Golden West Air Show. We eventually ended up both on the board of directors for the Golden West, worked on trying to keep that air show going as long as we could until we had to close it. But then we proceeded to help to develop the General Aviation Fly-In Ramp over at the California Capitol Air Show. Jim's background is he is a very active pilot. He's been flying Young Eagles with his Placerville chapter for a number of years. And he's a retired Aerojet safety engineer where he'd worked for, I think it was 30 years. And before that, he'd been doing a number of other things. And one of the things that I'd been talking with him about CalPilots and what trying to do to help protect Reed Hillview, and mentioned about the lead report. And he'd said, yeah, when I was in college, I did soil surveys for lead back in the 70s. I went, oh, this is good. So he's been trying to get up to speed on what's going on with Reed Hillview, some of the politics. I think he'll make a tremendous, him and his wife, Sunny, I think will make a tremendous asset to CalPilots. Would like to have him help us when we have participate in the Aviation Awareness Day at the Capitol, where we actually walk and speak with the legislators, and to be able to help put forward some ideas to help promote aviation here in the state of California for 2022 and beyond. And I think Jim's going to be a tremendous asset to the state of California in the years to come.
Thank you very much. Okay, so do I hear a motion to, oh wait, could you share the ballot? So there are some people who are not up for re-election. That would be Patrick in Region 1, Doug Rice in Region 3, and Paul Marshall, a director at large in Region 1. Those three are not up for re-election. They're an alternate year. We're trying to make it so that not all the board is up for re-election every 2 years. So we're staggering it. So the rest is the slate as you see it, and the, oh, very nice who enlarged it. That was great. So that is who we're voting. Do we hear a motion to accept the slate? Is that you, Jolie?
I move to accept the slate.
And did someone second that?
I will second it. That's Gil.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And now we're going to have the membership vote on this. So please go in the chat and vote yes, aye, or no, yay or nay for the chat. Good. So yes, people are voting. That is wonderful. Thank you so much. That's what we need. So you guys keep voting, and we're going to move on to the next item. We'll leave this up for a few minutes because people might want to look at, you've met all of us. You're going to meet Gary this in a little while. Jim and Bill haven't been able to log in, but I know that they're very dedicated. Bill Sanders is especially helpful in land use issues, which we deal with all the time. In fact, I'll just tell you a little story while we're voting for a minute. On Thursday, I was in more than an hour-long meeting, again discussing land use at San Carlos Airport. I'm on the Airport Land Use Committee, and there was a discussion of not having navigation easements anymore, and we depend on them to notify people in addition to the AB 2776, which is a bill that the San Carlos Pilots Association worked on years ago to get land use notification in your sign-alone document. And now that's law throughout the state. And you have to sign acknowledging you're living within 5 miles of an airport. And but San Mateo County didn't want to enforce the part about the navigation easements. So we had a big discussion about how to just move it to other notification that would be even better. And that's how it turned out on Thursday's meeting, with more than an hour of wrangling. And this was about the 3rd or 4th meeting on this topic. Okay, I see votes are coming in. Please still keep voting. Everyone is eligible if you're a member of the California Pilots Association or DART, as Andy answered, or lifetime members. Everybody can vote, so please keep voting. All right, announcements. Oh yes, before that, I'm going to talk to you about approval of bylaws. We've had a standing committee for a number of months that has voted for the bylaws. They, sorry, not voted, reworked the bylaws, eliminated certain extraneous information, added things like electronic email voting, et cetera, especially things that are brought up because of the pandemic. And so that committee has finished their work, and they're sending out have sent out their work, but it didn't give the board enough time to go over it. So we have an exciting thing. We are going to have a holiday presentation in a few weeks. It'll be November, but it will include all holiday things for November and December. We're going to have another one of these presentations with other exciting speakers. Maybe we'll have repeat speakers. We're not sure yet. But during that time, that will give everybody, both the board and the members, an opportunity to review the bylaws that are refreshed after 8 years, and we can vote on them at that upcoming meeting. So stay tuned for notice about that meeting, and for seeing the bylaws and absorbing the streamlining that this excellent committee worked on. The committee included Patrick Wallner, Andy Wilson, and Gary Shank and Doug Rice. And so we're grateful to everyone for working on that, and you'll see them soon. Are there any other announcements from board members? Oh, look at that, lots of votes. Okay,
Carol,
not hearing.
Carol, we
Yes.
did have one question come up from Bob Tucknott. He wanted to know how he could sign in. I think that's so he could sign in to vote.
Sure.
All you need to do is go on the chat, click on chat at the bottom, and type your vote, whatever it is, into the chat box and hit send or return or whatever, and it will be on the chat record for us to count as a vote.
It should, thank you, Paul. It should say to everyone. You can, there's a little drop down and you can pick to whom you want your message to go. So in this case, click to everyone, and then you can type yay or nay, and that your vote will be registered, and we appreciate it very much. Okay, we're going, in 1 minute, we're gonna adjourn the business meeting. You know, the votes, the tallying is on, oh yeah, I know, Jolie.
About the chapter reports.
Oh, chapter reports, thank you. Do we have chapter reports? We have one from you, Jolie. Why don't you start, and then we'll have one. Go ahead.
Yeah, just back up to the agenda. We've got the chapter reports and then a chapter brief. Paul, would you like to start with E16?
Sure, Jolie.
Mike, you can stop sharing if you would.
So at E16, that's San Martin Airport. We've had a turbulent couple of years with the virus. We've seen a lot of turnover in pilots, people actually moving out of state because they're a little bit upset with life and the cost of living in California. And I've heard terms like commie-fornia. It's kind of sad in a way, but we also have a generational change going on at the airport. We have a lot of younger pilots coming in, and so there's a lot of fresh energy. We had our first open house at the airport in a couple of years. The group that had organized it dissolved, and we had a couple people step up at the airport and do it. So that was really a good experience. Our biggest problem at the moment is we're caught in the Reed Hillview backwash or afterburn. The county has voted the supervisors voted and directed staff to stop selling 100 low lead at all county airports on January 1. So that's only a couple of months away. We're having a pilot town hall at our airport tomorrow to address that thought. On the one hand, we're very positive about encouraging people to adopt unleaded avgas. On the other hand, we absolutely defend every pilot's right to fill their plane with the fuel that it can use. And so many planes out there right now can only use 100 low lead. So that's our big trouble that we're working. That's a CalPilot kind of a trouble that we're working through at the airport.
Thank you, Paul. Also, I want to mention in the chat, someone is concerned about a secret ballot, and our general counsel, Carl Schweikert, has kindly mentioned that you can direct email or chat him, private message him if you want. He's the general counsel. So if someone wishes that, please do. Usually we meet in a big hall with a lot of people and you raise your hand. So it's not really secret, but I understand that someone might want to vote in secret, and Carl has graciously given us a way to do that. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. And now, Jolie, do you have a...
I do. I wanted to talk about our little slice of paradise, Oceano Airport on the coast near Pismo Beach. Some of you might remember that the reason that Friends of Oceano Airport founded was in 2009, we had a threat of a developer who wanted to bulldoze the airport and make it into condominiums and housing. And so it's unfortunate to say, but there are two different groups in the community that are actively trying to close the airport, forming these councils, having these studies and surveys with the goal of closing down our airport and redeveloping it. So most of you know, Friends of Oceano Airport is a 501c3 nonprofit chapter of CalPilots. Our goal has been to be very present at meetings to promote our airport through our annual charity events. We just had our fly-in movie night, and coming up December 4th is our 13th annual Toys for Tots event. But I just wanted to say that if you can come and enjoy Oceano Airport, we get, takeoffs and landings, and we've got a great little FBO that's going to be coming in. We're going to have a pilot's lounge, and our campground is going to be revitalized, I guess would be the best word. But when we think that our little airports aren't being noticed, there are groups out there that are trying to close them because it's nice flat land close to the Pacific Ocean in our case. So that's my update, is to stay involved, stay engaged, and keep our voices being heard. Always positive, always letting folks know why your airport is a good community member.
Thank you, Jolie. I like the Toys for Tots. I know that at Redlands, Ted and Cindy Gablin, Cindy just won a prize. They have a Toys for Tots there. They're one of our CalPilots chapters as well. And so that's a really good event, and it involves the community, and it gives a positive PR to the airport. So thank you. Does anyone else have a chapter thing they want to mention? And then I'll go to Andy Wilson, who's going to briefly speak about chapters. Anyone else have something before that? Okay, Andy, briefly.
So for years, CalPilots has had chapters at airports. Some airports have EAA and CalPilots. When you join as a chapter of CalPilots, you file with the government agencies as a 501c3, which is a nonprofit, and you file under CalPilots. One of the advantages is some of you have seen Carl already. He's our general counsel. We lean on him every now and then, and the board of directors. And some people outside the board we depend on as well. What we're trying to do over the next year is find the resources within the chapters that can help with land use as well as saving our airports. And I'll be sending out emails on that, and we'll be having some Zoom meetings on that as well. One airport we have here that I'm near is Hayward Executive. Two things, that's where all the power plant stuff started. And we were able to stop a number of power plants throughout the United States. And the FAA ended up writing their own thermal plume model by the MITRE Corporation. And I was one of 10 people that was asked by the FAA to fly back to their offices in Washington, DC to view the first viewing of the model itself and demonstration. One last item, again at Hayward, the golf course is closed. And there are a number of people trying to figure out how they can build houses, how they can put in affordable housing, et cetera, et cetera. I'm heavily involved in that, and a few other airports. Truckee Airport, they've stopped this year, they didn't do the air show, and there's a movement to close the airport, so I'm working with those people. So we're all active, we're all volunteers, and we're making an effort to not only protect the land around the airports, but also trying to prevent airports from closing. I think Paul had a question.
Yeah, we picked up a question from an anonymous attendee. He says 2 years ago, he did work for his nonprofit with 6,000 members, and many providers were not secure enough, so it was so easy to eliminate many companies. What provider did CalPilots decide on for the e-voting? Is that anything you'd like to speak to at this time, Andy?
I missed the point. What
provider did
his
CalPilots
organization?
I don't know. He doesn't identify who he is or his organization.
Carol has it.
He's just talking about how are we going to vote electronically. I think he means in the future. This year we're voting on Zoom.
Correct. Correct.
So in the future, I don't think we have an app or a company. He's concerned that we would be ripped off by some company voting? I'm
No,
not
I think
sure.
his real simple question: what provider did CalPilots decide on for the e-voting? That assumes we've decided on one. And Andy, I think you've got some thoughts that way. Is there anything you want to speak to?
This was, and this is part of what we're struggling with on the bylaws and Zoom meetings. So based on our general counsel, Carl, last year, we did the voting the same way.
Okay.
Okay. Now next year, you'll actually be able to log into the website. You'll be able to vote, and it'll automatically check if your membership is up to date and your dues are paid. And we'll have a analysis and summary at the end of that. Now, for this voting, we're doing some matching between people who voted, and so far, everybody's voted yes. And we've met the minimum for a quorum and a vote. So we're past that. Now what's going to happen after this, after my announcement, is when we close the meeting today, there's we're going to get a printout of the chat room, and we'll be able to further verify that the count and information is correct. So we'll be giving a count, and then we're going to verify it after the meeting.
And I would encourage the anonymous attendee, if he has a suggestion, I'll put my email in the chat. Send me an email and I'll forward it on to Andy. Thank you.
And Carl?
I just wanted to mention Andy. Andy also asked me to validate. So there are going to be multiple people validating the votes, and I've copied them off to a separate document so that I have them and I'm comparing them against the membership list. And there are many people, thank you so much for joining today, that I'm going to have to get an updated list, but I've noted those names that I need to check against people who registered today. And thank you very much. It's your participation that lets CalPilots go out and do things like trying to protect airports. So thank you again for joining today, for those of you who joined today.
Okay, so I had to recount it twice because they moved the chat and I lost my count. But anyway, I got a count of 61 and 65. We may be up or down a little bit. I couldn't find any nays. They're all yays or yeses.
God bless you all.
So, and again, that will be verified by Carl and myself after the end of the meeting. So the motion passes. The board is in full. There were no objections, and so we move on.
Gil, please pass our congratulations to Jim for joining us, and we look forward to working with him. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Carl. Doug has a brief update he's going to give on something he's been working on.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you for the membership and their participation. I want to give a brief update to Oakland International Airport. For those who have flown in and been surprised with the airport landing fees, there is no resolution on that as of yet. We continue to engage the airport as we have over the last couple of years. They just raised the landing fee again. They are now at $66 minimum landing fee for anything under 12,500 pounds. It does not matter if you're a King Air 250 or a Cessna 150, you're going to pay that landing fee to the airport if, and I want to emphasize this, if you enter one of the FBO ramps. If you do a landing taxi back, or you do a touch and go, or you do an instrument approach to a missed approach, there is no fee for using Oakland International Airport. What triggers the fee is when you enter the ramp. And the airport has been resistant, I think would be a nice term, to any sort of changes or fixes to this problem. And we will continue to press them. We are in communication with other aviation groups, both local and national, to try and address this problem. It is a port problem. It is not an FAA problem at this point. The port and I will be polite in saying, from every user and every business that we have talked to that does business at the port has been very difficult to work with. That's airlines, FBOs, and operators. So we continue to work with them, and I just want to make sure everybody is aware of the conditions, what triggers the fees, what the fees are, and how to avoid them. Thanks, Carol.
Thank you, Doug. All our board members are hardworking on different issues. We've just highlighted a few now, but trust me, everybody has multiple hats they're wearing to do many, many jobs. And let's see. So right now we're closing the, Jolie, do I have another thing? I want to close the meeting for the PAC report, and then we're going to have excuse me, whoever is in charge of Zooming, would you be sure that Melissa McCaffrey gets in as a panelist, because she's going to speak with me shortly. Okay, so we're going to adjourn this part of the meeting, and then Walt and I are going to discuss the Political Action Committee. Oh, there's Melissa. Hi. Briefly, Walt, I'm on the political, we closed the meeting because the Political Action Committee is a separate entity from CalPilots.
Right.
We have our Political Action Committee hats. The board is the same, but we're completely separate, and our funds do not commingle. We have a separate bank account, which Walt will tell us has 9,000 something in it, right, Walt?
$9,177 right at the moment, but it has a little bit more coming from CalPilots, which I have not put in yet. So
thank you. And we always can use more, because remember, this is one of my pet sayings, and you may quote me, money is important to airports, but airports really run on politics. That's why we work with the Aviation Caucus. That's why we have Aviation Airport Day at Sacramento, and we visit all 120 assembly people and senators. And as I mentioned at the very beginning of the meeting, our Aviation Caucus is bicameral. That means Assembly and Senate, both houses, and they're bipartisan, meaning they're Republicans and Democrats, each in the caucus, because each has a stake in what happens to aviation in the state, which produces over 9%, almost 10% of the state's domestic product. That's really important. Lots of jobs and lots of place for jobs in the state in aviation. So we go and deliver that message every year, and CalPilots help start Aviation Day. So we're really invested in that, and it's really important. And we give contributions locally and statewide to people that you suggest we should give a donation to. So we do it in city and county elections. So if you're supervisor or you think someone is really pro-airport, sometimes, like Oceanside a number of years ago when they were having such a severe problem, I was asked which candidates I thought should go get donations. I said all of them. And they were concerned because they only wanted to give to the pro-aviation people. And I was concerned, what if those pro-aviation people didn't win? We needed to give to everyone so they would recognize that we were a force in this fight to keep Oceanside Airport going. And afterwards, Alan Cruz, the president of the Oceanside Airport Association at that time, said to me, you know what, that was a good idea, because half the ones we wanted didn't win, and then these others won, and we'd given to everybody. So it's a very good way to put ourselves on the radar of these different groups and let them, cities and counties, and let them know that we're supporting their airports. So I'm also asking for PAC donations today, if you can. Thank you. Okay. Now, I think, Melissa, you and I are going to talk for a couple of minutes about lead at Reed Hillview Airport. I'd like you to welcome my friend and colleague, Melissa McCaffrey. She is the AOPA representative for the Western Pacific region. You probably all know her. And if you don't, you've seen her name on God knows what things. And she and I were fortunate about a month ago to give a presentation along with Rayvon Williams, who is the airport manager at Watsonville. He's on vacation and there's a big fire right near Watsonville. So we didn't include him in this today, but Melissa and I will give you a little update on what's happening with lead. So maybe I'll start and Melissa chime in at any point. I don't know, a few months ago in August, we had a big meeting with the Board of Supervisors in Santa Clara County, which is on the peninsula near Palo Alto and right by Reed Hillview Airport. And they had hired a man, a scientist from Colorado to study lead, but it was so narrowly focused, it really didn't give a clear picture of what was happening with lead at Reed Hillview Airport. Also, by the way, there have been several other CalPilots board members paying attention to this topic, and they are Paul Marshall and Gil Wright and Doug Rice. And so we'll probably call on them during this. So this study said the pilots at Reed Hillview Airport are poisoning the children with lead. Now, they didn't do any current lead studies. I know there are historic lead studies with children, but it didn't pinpoint that the airport was the sole source of this. And this lead study at Reed Hillview did not include other factors. For example, right across the street from the airport is a site that had been an auto speedway for 23 years and gave out more lead in a single day of racing than Reed Hillview dispersed in a year of flying at Reed Hillview. This study was direct. Oh, and it also didn't include any other lead that like from factories or lead from the freeways that had been standing by for a long time, or lead in the paint from Sherman Williams, who paid a huge $350 million in fines or restoration to Santa Clara County. That was not included in this study. The study was aimed at harming Reed Hillview Airport, and it was disingenuous to do it this way. And one supervisor, Cindy Chavez, no, she won't be getting any PAC donations from us. She was trying to close the airport, and she's been trying, along with various other supervisors and help in Santa Clara County for years, to close the airport. So this study was that. And Melissa and I and many others on this here today in Zoom tried to listen to that bogus, I'm using incorrect words, that meeting was very one-sided. They had people who had believed that the airport was harming them, plaintively pleading to close the airport and stop harming their children. So you should know the background. I'm going to tell you one thing about San Carlos, and then Melissa can speak. So San Carlos Airport was part of a nationwide study by the EPA about 10 plus years ago. And the 5 airports in the state of California that were studied were San Carlos, Palo Alto, Reed Hillview, Gillespie Field, and Carlsbad. Those 2 are near San Diego. And then there were 10 others in the rest of the United States. And I'm also the president of the San Carlos Airport Association, and we contacted all 10 of those other airports, as well as the 5 in the state of California. And we found out that they had not, according to their own study guidelines, they had not properly placed the monitors for the lead. So so the way they were placed at San Carlos, the monitor was here and the planes doing run up were here, shooting the exhaust from the planes into the monitor, which was not only against the study protocols, they weren't supposed to be placed so close to the airplanes because they get distorted readings by doing that. The monitors are distorted. They can't handle forced air. They can only handle ambient air. So when they did it that way, they got really high readings, which made them very excited. They could say San Carlos was harming everybody. But it wasn't true, because when they moved the monitors to the proper place and did readings then, they were ambient. They were not any elevated levels. So they also thought, the EPA, that maybe we were poisoning children. So they took the monitors near the airport, and where there was a child care center right off the airport, very close to the border of the airport. And they had a monitor there for months and months and months. And that also did not have increased levels, so much that they got bored and stopped monitoring it because there was no elevated level. So I think it's important to know this, that this is a vendetta against the airport. And this study, while it may have shown that children have lead in their system, they did not include that children throughout the state have the same kinds of levels, not just in Santa Clara County. So I would like to hear some comments from you, Melissa.
Sure, thanks, Carol. And thanks for having me today. So Carol mentioned the vote that Santa Clara County had in August. And along with that vote, there was it was difficult because even the pro-airport folks were in a tough position with all that was brought to the table, like Carol mentioned, with the lead levels of children. But with that petition, they asked for the immediate closure, or they're petitioning the FAA to ask for immediate closure of the airport, calling it a public health crisis, which is interesting. And we haven't really seen that in other airports in California or nationwide. So a lot of this is kind of precedent setting for us on the airports team in AOPA. And with that, they called to eliminate that lead exposure by prohibiting 100 low lead sales and usage. So again, something unique and different that we haven't seen before. And so there's a lot of kind of legal questions on, is this possible? Is this legal? Can this happen? But, I think the good news is that we have had very in-depth discussions with FAA, and they have had some recent letters to the county. And I do not anticipate that the FAA would approve any type of request for closure prior to 2031, which is when the expiration of their grant assurances happen. But that being said, I think this is a very important topic that is important for all California airports and pilots to be aware of, because not to inject fear into the conversation, but we know that people are watching, right? And I think it's important that we band together and have an understanding when this does come up.
Right.
Carol?
And I know, yes, Doug, was that you, Doug?
It's me. If I may, I want to interject something in so that people are that are listening are aware of a couple of the conditions and situation here. First things first, the PhD who did the study is a statistician. He is not a lead scientist or environmental scientist. What he did was he manipulated a California state database. The Department of Health keeps a database of blood lead levels, and it is supposed to be an anonymous database. However, it is geotagged, so they know the address of every single participant. There were about 17,000 samples. The study does not take, first of all, he did not take any independent sampling. He did not take any readings. He did not take into account the EPA readings, which have been monitored at the airport for years. And finally, that study from the state does, as you said, does not identify lead sources within the blood level. That is, we don't know if it's automotive lead, paint lead, pipe lead, aviation lead, or anything else. So that was an integral part of the study. Another portion of the study indicated certain areas, certain directions based on winds that would show higher lead levels. And he talked about residents within a half a mile. And I challenged this directly to the author of the study as to his statement that in the eastern quadrant would have the highest lead levels within a half mile of the airport. The problem is there are no homes within a half mile of the airport from his site location. In fact, there are no homes within 1 mile from where he took his statistical site location. So rather disproving what the situation is. The other thing that people need to know about what's going on at Reed Hillview is all of the leases for all the operators at the airport expire on December 31st. The County Board of Supervisors considered extending leases or issuing leases in 1 to 3 year increments, and that failed at the board level for lack of a second. So as of January 1, all the leases are going to go to month. And more importantly, and more interestingly, the county is going to take over all of the fuel tanks that are on the airport. No indication yet of who's going to provide the fueling. No indication yet of whether the county is going to do it, but there is an indication that the county is not going to sell leaded fuel. That is, they're going to try and sell only unleaded fuel. Which at this point is only 94 octane. And I'll leave it at there, Carol, because that's just a general discussion and overview so that the users and those on the call here understand some of the background better.
Yes, and also that is the key where Paul Marshall has been targeting whether, and Paul, do you want to just mention this briefly, that your concern and writing to the FAA?
Yeah, and in fact, I'd like to add several things, as I think it'll help give pilots a broader understanding of what people have objected to and help arm them better for if it ever comes to their airport.
Yes, good. And then there's questions in both the Q&A and the chat that I want to address. Okay, so number one, it's really interesting to note that these people around the airport, the state has a lower economic status lunch program for children at school to give them free lunches. And one of the requirements is that all those children get blood level measurements. So that's how these measurements were taken. It gives you a limited sample size and that it's only people that are on these lunch programs, which tend to cluster in certain areas and not be uniformly distributed around the county. Of interest to note is that the CDC says 5 micrograms per liter is the action level where you've got to start doing something. And these kids are averaging about 1.8 to 2.0. So we're well below the action level. If you go all around the county where we can get blood level measurements, it seems like 1.8 is right in the range of other blood level measurements around the county. Now, one thing they did successfully, in my view, they did a good statistical regression analysis, and they did have 17,000 data points. And in one respect, you can argue you don't have to take custom measurements just for report. You can take any old measurements if they're valid measurements. But they did associate about 0.2 of a deciliter higher blood lead level close to the airport, downwind of the airport, and on heavy traffic months at the airport. Now that's only about 11% of the total lead that's in the blood. So they're calling a crisis something that's only 11% of the blood for blood lead levels that are essentially like they are elsewhere in the county. So what the airport combatants, the airport haters have done
is take a single tiny pollution problem, and we have thousands of pollution problems all around our environment, and they've zeroed in on it and tried to use it as a means to declare a crisis, which they did, and to justify closing the airport. So we had a very difficult time getting the papers to carry the message that, hey, this is making a mountain out of a molehill. So expect if it comes to your area that they will do that. The county has also, with several other organizations, petitioned the EPA to declare a hazardous lead finding and to regulate aircraft emissions, which they hope will end up saying that no lead emissions are allowed at all. So that's the way that the county is trying to get one federal agency to put the hammer on another federal agency, the FAA, who's protecting us. So, so at any rate, the way we view it is, this is just a small compounding problem. We think it's appropriate. And when I say we, this is really I speak for myself, because every single person that addresses this issue has a slightly different opinion. So this is my opinion. It is a good thing in our environment to always try to reduce overall the pollutants going into our environment. Will make our children healthier and everybody healthier in the long term. It's totally wrong to declare this a crisis and to take the kind of discriminatory action that they're going after. And what certainly all the pilots agree at my airport is that we want to defend our ability to fuel with 100 low lead while we're in any kind of a transition period from unleaded to leaded. And it's very important to note that at Reed Hillview, there's 4 10,000-gallon storage tanks. Reed Hillview is one of the very busiest GA airports in the state. And of course, if anybody has a lead pollution problem, it's going to be one of the busiest ones because they go through so much gasoline there. The good news is it's barely a problem at all. The other good news is they've already changed over to the 4 tanks to unleaded, and 2 large flight schools that operate a huge number of flights are using the unleaded fuel. And we did an analysis where something like 85% of the flights taking off from Reed Hillview can use unleaded fuel. So it may be if they take some additional measurements going forward just in the next year, that they're going to see that the contribution of aviation to lead poisoning has gone down a whole lot. And there is no more justification for closing the airport based on lead.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. First of all, there's several questions in the Q&A and in the chat. I want to mention them. David Troop asks, it is my understanding correct that Reed Hillview has a perpetual obligation to be operated as an airport, not limited by time, and that if the county closes it, even in 2031, they'll have to return to land to the federal government? I'm not sure exactly. Can you talk about that? Do you know, well, Melissa?
We have heard that that the federal government will generally not use this to prevent the closure of the airport, that they may require themselves to be reimbursed for the market value of all the land that they purchased, which they purchased a lot of that land on grants.
But they don't have to accept that, Paul. They don't.
Well, we hope, but the people that seem to be in the know as to how the FAA handles this say, don't get your hopes up.
We'll see. Okay, we don't have a definitive answer yet, but keep plugging away. Does the PAC, Michael McCarthy, does the PAC target aviation unfriendly? We don't have that kind of PAC where we can do ads against people. No, we just give money to people that we think will help. Can we target aviation unfriendly elected officials? No. Does the PAC cultivate candidates to run against them? We always encourage them and we would give to them. Dave Guerreri, I'm not sure I pronounced that right. Guerrieri, thank you. I heard that airport employees at RHV had their blood levels tested and elevated levels were not found. And he believes Supervisor Submidian asked for a second study. We don't know about that yet. Yes, he did, but we don't know if one is going to be done. I would like my lead level tested to see if mine is elevated. I would like to participate in that study if there is one. I don't know how to request one, but the next time you go to your doctor and they want to do a blood test, tell them to include lead. Vikas Kapoor says, is it possible to fund a scientific counter study? Yes, it might be, yes. But we don't have money, so please give to us. We can work on that. with other groups like NBAA and AOPA. Whatever happened to, yes, Julian Gomez says, whatever happened to the FAA determination that RHV was a critical reliever? It is, and they said that. And so who knows what will happen after that. And then in the chat, yeah, more questions can be answered during lunchtime and we will answer them. And thank you all for commenting. I know that Gil Wright was working, we're out of time, which is why I'm talking faster. Gil Wright mentioned the FAA and a Part 16 study, which is another way. We're kind of throwing everything that we can at this situation to help thwart their plot to close the airport because it's ridiculous. And please, we are interested in this. If you have a situation where someone is at your airport that there's a problem, please contact us. We'll help you. Okay, Jolie, are we going to do prizes now and then, or are we doing the DART film first?
It is time for Paul Marshall to take us through CalDART. And when that's done, we will do our 5 door prizes. We have 104 participants right now. So you're gonna stay and watch this great presentation about a wonderful part of our disaster relief responses here in California. So Paul, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Jolie.
Wait, one second. I want to thank Melissa McCaffrey for helping us today. Thank you so much for coming, Melissa.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so the one other thing I have to do here on my share is make sure I share the audio. So there we go. More. You are screen sharing. There we go, share sound. Okay, we're ready to go. So I'll give everyone a little overview about what's happened on DART. And Jolie, can you confirm we've got full screen now?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good enough. So this is what's up with CalDART. CalDART is a wholly owned subsidiary of the California Pilots Association. Here's a little video on what
Natural disasters of all kinds strike California daily. And when they do, lives are threatened, property is destroyed, and immediate help is on its way. Or is it? Emergency officials say that in any disaster, you're on your own for the first 72 hours, and life-sustaining supplies, shelter, and hope are essential to survival. When a disaster strikes, CalDART flies into action by providing life-saving services on a moment's notice. We are a California-based volunteer nonprofit organization, fully supported by viewers like you. We need your help. To volunteer, to donate your time and express your generosity, and to spread the word throughout your communities in California that we will always be there when you need us most. The California Disaster Airlift Response Team Network is comprised of skilled volunteer pilots who utilize their experience, personal equipment, and aircraft to transport critical supplies and personnel many miles, or the last mile, between the disaster area and local airports in the disaster zone. Our CalDART operators are located in communities and airports around the state, growing in number and proficiency year by year. They conduct annual readiness exercises, working with local organizations that assist during disasters to prepare for the logistical issues that could arise in an emergency. Volunteer pilots, ground support, and your financial contributions are essential to help us assist you and your neighbors throughout California during a crisis. We are a necessity in your community's lifeline during an emergency. We are CalDART. For additional information on what we do and how you can contribute to our cause, go online to caldart.org. Visit the Join Renew tab to become a volunteer, as well as the Donate Friend tab to make a donation in support of our all-volunteer mission. Natural disasters of
So that's a video on what we do. And certainly you can also become a member of CalDART through the CalPilots website by clicking on the CalDART option. but you can only donate to CalDART at the CalDART website. Here's a little comparison, side-by-side comparison. We have something called the CalDART Network Overview. We tend to update them about once a year. The one on the left is from 2019. The one on the right is from 2021. So during that time, just in 2 years, we've about doubled. So there's been a whole lot of people who have found this, this activity compelling. They recognize that it helps bind their airport to the local community at the same time as it gives them one other way to practice their love for aviation. The red dots are where we have DART operators, the teams that have a yearly exercise or actually run missions. And the white dots are where people have signed up, but they don't yet have a team at their particular airport. So we have a couple different teams statewide that help make this happen at the board level. We have a group of people that helps keep all the corporate things churning forward, making sure our programs are in place and that we're acting responsibly from a corporate point of view. I will make one note here. One of these people is new since last year. Mark Van Wyk is a brand new treasurer for the group. Very tragically, our past treasurer, Jim Peterson, crashed about 15 minutes short of a flight a few weeks ago to Page, Arizona, and he didn't make it through the crash. So his wife was badly injured. She's looking for a full recovery though, so that's good news there, and their family dogs made it out okay. But Mark Van Wyk has stepped up and is going to carry the ball for us as treasurer going forward. There's a second team statewide that helps us be what we are, and that's our operator leadership team for the DART operators. These are people around the state who sit in on a monthly call. We talk about who's doing what, who's got operations going, who needs a hand, how should we improve what it is we're doing. So I really want to give a shout out to these people. These people work with the in their own way and separately with state board of directors to really keep us moving forward on all cylinders. So my thanks to everyone who participates. Real quickly about what we do for disaster transport. Basically, we're a transportation organization. We transport passengers and light cargo. Mostly we have very small planes. So there's many, many kinds of transport operations, almost like air taxi, if you would, that we can do. We can focus, getting on emergency first responders into a community. If they've got an emergency operations center that they need to staff because the local emergency people are personally impacted by a disaster, we can fly in their volunteer staff. Well, similarly, we can fly in medical people, police and fire, who's ever needed. It could be that people need to evacuate. So if you have seniors or other fragile people in a disaster zone, they may need to get out of there. So we can take families, pets, people, and move them. We can also do cargo on the cargo side of things. Food and water are the biggest applications. The Loma Prieta earthquake, of which you saw some footage in that last video we just looked at, that was primarily a food airlift where 500,000 pounds of food and supplies were flown into Watsonville Airport. So there's a couple ways to participate in CalDART. You can join as a CalDART member. And of course, if you join CalDART, you're also a member of CalPilots. And as a member, you can support CalDART mobilizations. In the last year and a half, we've had a bunch of them for COVID and for fires. You can also educate your community about DART. We find that if communities aren't aware that DART service is available, that they're reluctant to actually ask for it during a disaster. So work with them ahead of time so that they know it's available. And you can go into the DART network and request aid, as well as providing mutual aid by making yourself available. So for the DART operators, a DART operator I mentioned is the group that has the annual exercise and organizes actual airlifts. It performs the administrative function around an airlift, getting pilots organized, volunteers organized, reaching out into the community and finding out who needs service. So the hard thing with getting a DART operator organized is somebody has to raise their hand and say, I'm willing to drive it. And if it's not one person, maybe a group of 3 or 5, they drive it as a small team. So that's how that happens. And we've got 12 of them so far in the state, with 2 more on the way, working on it at Columbia and Grass Valley. And the DART operators can help each other. We have 200 and some people, 250 people approximately, on our email list that we can reach out to. We also have a mutual aid agreement with Angel Flight West, where they will come and offer us assistance if we need a truly large operation. So looking at 2021 and what the highlights were, let's go ahead and let me stop my share while I work a new share. Escape out of this. We'll go to this. We'll go here to this video. We'll make it full screen. Okay, now we're ready to do a new share. Okay, here goes.
Volunteer pilots airlifted direct relief donations to Oregon firefighters. News Channel reporter Blake Devine shows how their fleet of planes delivered critical supplies from the Santa Barbara airport.
Battling more than 1 million acres of wildfires, Oregon frontline workers have quickly used up their mass and medical supplies. To help out, Santa Barbara-based Direct Relief aimed to aid. But with commercial shipping delayed because of West Coast fires, pilots from all over California came to the rescue at the Santa Barbara airport.
The spontaneous volunteering effort of the pilots who are doing this as volunteers at their own expense just mobilized 40 planes within 2 days and made all the logistics arrangements.
Pilots flew out 100,000 K95 masks along with critical medical supplies.
They've been working all week just getting this stuff boxed up. They figured they could get them ready by this morning and we could fly them up today, so they're there the same day.
CalDART is a network of pilots flying their private aircrafts for disaster relief.
But when it's worthwhile, the volunteers come out of the woodwork. Everybody wants to help.
For me, it's a little tiny thing that I can do to try to help out by getting some of these masks up to the firemen and women.
My aircraft is fairly fast, so we can make it non-stop, and I figure, well, if I can help out, so much the better. And I get to fly and have an excuse.
This is insane.
Fast-moving fires have devastated California and the Pacific Northwest this season.
All of us are just so pleased to be able to help and do something of use during this time of need and this time of hardship.
Such a great example of this good old-fashioned people stepping up, doing what they can that they don't have to do to help people that are going through a real tough time.
Some of the planes flew directly to Eugene, while others transported cargo to Northern California airports. In Santa Barbara, Blake Devine, News Channel 12.
Okay, so let's get back to our PowerPoint presentation. Here we go. We'll share this. And then we'll make it full screen. Okay, so that was the Oregon firefighter airlift that we did last year. Big success and a lot of fun for the people who flew it. Here's the Yurok tribe that happened early this year. The Yurok tribe also needed COVID medical supplies. This one came to us through the evac group up in Washington, the Seattle, Washington area, Puget Sound. They were in touch with the National Tribal Emergency Management Council that was trying to get emergency supplies out to tribes all over the US. And so we played a part in that, bringing supplies from Santa Barbara up to the Klamath River, where their tribal homelands are. And of course, we used the Crescent City Airport, which had a wonderful instrument approach nearby. So, people have to organize these things. You'll see a name here, Josh Swigert. He was the operations director. Ron Levick was the charisma behind the operation. But there was a 4-page overall logistics sheet that was put together that represents the kind of organization that our DART operators do when they fly. We have a couple people here, ladies from Palo Alto and San Jose International, I believe, that participated that day. Some people got back a little after sunset. There were some beautiful sunsets that night. Here's a couple of overhead views of the Crescent City Airport. Another big thing we did this year was revise our disaster airlift response plan, releasing it as issue 2.0. It gives better guidance if you're running an operation with just one person. How do you do it versus if you have 100? So you can scale it up. Yes, ma'am.
Paul, someone said that reset your screen. It's all zoomed in and we couldn't see the other pictures. It's just giant for what we can see.
Okay, good enough. So how's that? Is that any better?
Yes, much better.
Okay. Sorry to leave you short. Thanks for the help on that, Carol. So the DARP is out there. It's got 35 enhancements from the last 3 years or so of exercises we've done. And a really big one is our DART operators no longer need to write their own plans. So that used to be a huge, huge job if you had to write your own manual. We had a wonderful training on June 12th, hosted by Peg Gardner here, shown on the right. We had 5 or 6 DART operators that participated. And it was basically show up and you get a scenario. Big disaster happens. These are the needs your community has. Here are the DART operators you can reach out to. Let's see if you can get everybody's needs taken care of. You weren't allowed to walk to the different tables because each table was a different airport. So people were calling on cell phones and such. Wonderful training, tabletop exercise. With the Dixie Fire, we got a request from the United Methodists to fly some school supplies from Chino Airport in Southern California up to their command center at the Dixie Fire. They had an airport right there, but it had a terrible instrument approach and there was a lot of heavy smoke. So we took it about an hour and a half away at Reno Stead, which had lighter smoke and a much better instrument approach. And here we have the long and short of it. Small Cessna and large Cessna CJ3, both participating. Just 2 planes that day. Flew a whole van full worth of school children back to school stuff for the kids who were burned out of Greenville. California Emergency Service Association featured CalDART at its annual conference this year. One of the training sessions was learning about utilizing general aviation assets during disaster. I gave that session and it was well attended by emergency management professionals in the state.
Excuse me again, Paul, I'm getting a notice from Jolie that we're overtime. So if you could wrap up ASAP, that would be terrific.
Okay, good enough. Dave Hopkins took us to Oshkosh this year, and by golly, anybody have any questions? Carol, if you could take a look, if there's any to answer, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, I'm looking now. Oh, he got a message from Mike Jess who says, yeah, it's lunch hour anyway. And they want to know if there's going to be a link to the videos, that it will be on the CalPilots YouTube channel.
Yeah, the 2 videos I showed are actually on the CalDART homepage. You can see both of them there. And I imagine this whole session will be part of the California Zooming sessions that we make available after the Zooming is over.